Sherrell McMillan was in Atlanta at the EYBL event down there. We also had some help from 24/7's guys who were out at the Adidas event. And there's just a lot to talk about here. So start first with Drake Powell. I think it has to start there because he had such a great weekend for himself. Last week, Sean and Sherrell both said they were looking forward to see how he handled carrying that fifth star and seeing how that burden fit with him. But y'all, I'm not one to exaggerate here. I've known Sherrell since he was knee high to a duck, right? Like since Moses wore short pants, I have known Sherrell McMillan. He has rarely been a guy that runs out of ways to discuss a recruit. And I'm here to tell you, as we sit on late April 2023, Sherrell is running out of ways to discuss his impressions of Drake Powell. Sherrell, I'm going to you first. You got to see Drake Powell play, and again, talking to you off the record, you seemed really jacked about him. So I guess I'm kind of putting that out there. But I want you to say, what was the first thing that jumped out at you in seeing him play versus the last time you saw him play?
He was noticeably bigger. Talked to some people who were there, who were close to him, and they talked about his work ethic, especially in the weight room, and just how he's trying to transform his body from kind of a slender, lanky kid to like a muscular, lanky kid. And it was definitely pretty obvious, the first time he stepped onto the court. So full disclosure, I only watched part of his first game. That Friday night, I was more focused on Elliot Cadeau because unfortunately, all of the Carolina commits and targets played at the exact same time. They all played at 5:30. And so it was just either not be focused on one thing and not really be able to glean anything, or just focus on one part and just miss out. So we decided to focus on Cadeau. But for the rest of the weekend, we were focused 100% on Drake Powell and just did not disappoint, man. I mean, there were I think the way we said it in the premium scoop, which feel free to go back and look at the EYBL period. I know Sean's a fan of those, just kind of seeing how things happen and who they watched and how the guys performed. What Powell's been able to do is he kept his strengths strong and turned his weaknesses into strengths. And so when you do that, you start to talk about players as being close to complete. I don't think he's there yet, but whereas he used to, the first thing people would say about Drake Powell was like, oh yeah, he's an athlete, very good defensively, but just can't shoot, can't score. What is he going to do at the next level? Guys, they're going to leave him wide open. He's not going to be able to hit shots. Well, now he's a proficient shot maker. He's always had the handle, I think, to play, to be able to dribble in traffic and lead breaks and everything. But now the jump shot is coming around, and now the pull-up jump shot is coming around. There were so many times where he would come off of a screen or a curl, get the ball, jab step one or two times, two quick dribbles, pull up jumper from mid range, good. There were several times he was wide open in the corner, pull up jump shot from three, good. There are several times where he'd come off that screen, uh, kind of jab step, take two dribbles, step back, three, good. So he's got everything in the arsenal. He'd come off of that curl, pump fake, jab and drive all the way to the rim and either finish through traffic or get to the free throw line. So he's displaying an offensive game that has matured considerably, I would say, over the last year, considerably, rapidly, um, superly, which is not really a word, but it's been impressive to watch. And then the defense has always been there. The defense is always something he's done in an elite level. But now that the offense is catching up with the defense, they're fueling each other and you're getting a player who really is ascending. And I think ascending is the correct word. I think it was the word we used when he committed, that this is a player whose trajectory was on the way up. And I just didn't know it was going to be from, the mid 70s to the 30s to 19 to very likely in the top 10 in the next, couple of months. That's not far fetched at all. I don't think it's wrong at all. I'm not a guy who does rankings. Obviously, I have my opinions, but there's not 10 better players in the class than Drake Powell.
Those are big words from a guy that doesn't
Hmm.
use hyperbole very often. Sean, you talked, and again, if I'm misquoting you here, please speak up. But you talked a couple of times on this show after Drake Powell committed that he was kind of a jack of all trades. I think you used Swiss Army knife as a term a couple of times. Um, what does it mean for him to take this kind of jump to where now not only does he have this well-rounded game, but he's become, you know, extremely reliable in getting his own shot and scoring. What does that do for him, and what does that do for North Carolina in adding him to the roster?
Well, I think it's pretty rare in terms of what he's been able to do. I think a lot of time when you see young athletic wings, not really the best jump shot, you kind of always talk about, hey, they need to improve their jump shot. But for the most part, it's pretty hard to transform your game. So the fact that he has been able to do that, and where Sherrell's going through all those moves that he had. I mean, this time last year, you weren't saying that about him. And this also goes to, got to give credit to UNC and their coaching staff. They identified the wing as a need in the 2024 class really early. Jaron Stevenson was obviously the first offer, but then they really focused on the wings. And once they offered Drake in the summer, and once he committed, that was it. He was the guy. Which having just seen him at EYBL, I was a little questioned a little bit, but that was obviously proven proven pretty apt in terms of the observation. And to be able to not only play defense, rebound, but now kind of have that go-to scoring role, especially on an EYBL team and a team that did really well. Once again, it's the first weekend. There's many more to go, but to your point, that was a question we both had coming into this weekend. We saw what he did in high school. I think even seeing him on video in high school from in person, and just that aggressiveness that he showed and the improvement jumped off the screen.